Lesson 5-6, Parallel and Perpendicular Lines. All right, so you know in this chapter we've been talking about linear functions, any function who creates a straight line. Today we're focusing on parallel and perpendicular. So it's important to first know what these two lines are. Parallel lines, remember, are lines that will never intersect. Okay, so they look something like this. They move with each other, but they'll never touch. Perpendicular lines will intersect, and when they do, they intersect at a perfect 90-degree angle. Okay, so lines that intersect, well, that one kind of looks 90 degrees, but not all intersections are 90 degrees. Perpendicular lines are. Okay, so parallel and perpendicular lines. All right, now we have been learning about equations of lines. With parallel lines, they will always have the same slope. Because if you think of this red line here, I go up 1 and over 2 for my slope. Well, if I have a parallel line to that, I also have to go up 1 and over 2. So that I go up and down, up and over by the same thing, that will cause me not to ever intersect. So parallel lines have the same slope. Different y-intercepts because they start at different places on the y-axis. Okay? Same slope, different y-intercept. Perpendicular lines that intersect at a 90-degree angle, their slopes are opposite reciprocals. For example, if my slope of my red line here is 1/2, the slope of my blue line is the opposite reciprocal. You flip the numerator and denominator and you make it negative. Or if it already was negative, you'd make it positive. So this would be the slope of one line, this would be the slope of another line. Okay, so those are the important things about parallel and perpendicular. So part of this lesson, they're going to give you two equations of lines and you need to decide, are they parallel, perpendicular, or neither? So what you want to do is you want to get them all into y equals mx plus b, because that's the easiest way for us to look at the slope. So my first line here, 4y equals negative 5x plus 12. Well, I'm going to divide everything by 4 to get y by itself plus 3. Okay, so there's my equation of one line. Looks like my other line is already written in y equals mx plus b, which is really nice. That won't always happen for you. All right, so let's see. Now I'm going to compare slopes. So I have negative 5 over 4, positive 4 over 5. These are opposite reciprocals. So these two lines would intersect at a 90-degree angle. Therefore, they are perpendicular. And that's how I answer that question. So you just need to solve for y and look at their slope. Let's look at another example. All right, y equals 3/4 x plus 7 is already in y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to look at this equation. I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. So I have negative 3y equals negative 4x plus 9. Oops, 9. Divide by negative 3 to everything over here. I get y equals 4/3 x minus 3. Look at my slopes, 3/4 and 4/3. It might be confusing because they look like reciprocals, but they aren't opposite. This would have had to be negative. So they don't have the same slope and they don't have opposite reciprocals, so these are neither. These would probably intersect at a random point, but would not be perpendicular. Okay, one more example. This one's already done for me. Negative 1/6 is my slope. I'm going to divide everything by 6 over here. I have y equals negative 1 over 6, x plus 1. Notice I have the same slope, different y-intercepts. These lines are parallel. Okay, so that's classifying. Now, we're going to learn how to write an equation of a parallel line. So, they tell us that a line passes through this point, 12, 5, and it's parallel to the graph of this line. What equation represents the line in slope-intercept form? So they want it in y equals mx plus b. So we know the equation of one line. We want the equation of the other line, and it has to pass through this point. So what you're going to first do, step one, identify the slope. Our slope is 2/3. Since we have a parallel line, we want our new equation to also have this slope. Step two, write an equation of the line. First, since we know slope and we know one point, we're going to use point slope. So I'm going to go y minus, my y value is 5, equals my slope of 2/3 times x minus my x value, which is 12. Then, since they want it in slope-intercept form, I can transform this by distributing negative 24 divided by 3 is negative 8 equals y minus 5, and I get y equals 2/3 x minus 3. There's my equation of a line that goes through this point and is parallel to that equation. I'll do one more for you. A line passes through this point and is parallel to this graph. Write an equation in slope-intercept form. Here's my slope of 2, so I want my equation to have this slope. I'm going to use point slope form, y minus negative 1, which becomes plus 1, equals 2 for my slope times x minus my x value, which will become plus 3. Distribute, subtract 1. There's my equation that is parallel to that one. All right, what about perpendicular? Same process. Write an equation. Oh, this they're having us choose, but we're just going to write it ourselves. Write an equation that passes through this point, but it's perpendicular to y equals 1/3 x minus 1. Okay, identify the slope. I look in the equation they give me and I identify the slope. Now, our equation needs to have an opposite reciprocal slope. So I need to flip the numerator and denominator and make it negative. So in essence, negative 3. Same thing for writing the equation. I'm going to use point slope. I have a slope and I have a point. So y minus 4 equals negative 3 times x minus 2 for my x value. Okay. Y minus 4 equals negative 3x plus 6. I distributed. Add 4, negative 3x plus 10. There's the equation of my line that would be perpendicular to this equation. One more example and then we'll end at our lesson check. We want to write an equation of a line that passes through 1, 8 and is perpendicular to this graph. First, identify my slope, which is 2. I see it right there. So my slope needs to be the opposite reciprocal. Then, write my point slope equation, y minus 8 equals negative 1/2 times x minus 1. Simplify. Add 8 plus 8.5. There we have it. So I go from point slope to y equals mx plus b. Okay, there's our lesson, 5-6. I'd like you to complete the lesson check. Number 2 is working with parallel lines. 3 is working with perpendicular. Number 1 is kind of both. Try to understand that question. It's great for learning about these two types of lines, and then bring your notes and answers to class.